almost 8 o'clock Friday morning. We spent the night up here last night in Seneca, Kansas. Stayed at the little hotel. We did a really good shoot yesterday with J6 Enterprises Troy Kramer that will be part of a whole different video. To make sure and go onto our YouTube channel and check it out. We're on our way to Hamas Trucking, Jason and Brad Hamas. I remember talking to their dad, Dan, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. He unfortunately passed away years ago, but dealt with his dad, Dan, hauling grain. Then the boys have taken it over, but it's been really cool that they continue the legacy, but not just on the trucking side. They have a huge truck shop and these show trucks that we've seen over the last several years at different trade shows. They actually put one of their trucks in a booth for us last year at the Nebraska Farm Show. As we record this, they're getting ready to fixing up some trucks to take them to Louisville. This one, I'm excited for you listeners or viewers to watch this, because you're going to see a lot of machinery today, a lot of really cool trucks and what they do with that. So yeah, we're getting ready to pull in here in just a little bit. Truck there.
I met you yet. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Brad.
Yeah. Details set out here.
Look at this guy.
Oh,
here.
this is Diesel. He's scared of everything.
He's Peterbilt.
Oh yeah, kind of.
So that's a perfect name.
Kind of my stress reliever during the day. Anyway, he's about 3 years old. And one thing you figure out about them is they have some gas. So you'll notice that every now and then, and they got a sensitive stomach. So he decided for some reason last night he had to throw up in the middle of the night. So
Oh no.
he got a bath this morning, and yeah. So anyway,
How old's Diesel?
3.
Okay, he's still
Yeah.
On the other side.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So actually just pulling stuff off the BulkLoads here now for a guy to bring back up. So
nice. Perfect timing.
yeah, it was. It was funny. I was looking at that and bringing it up. I'm like, well, I better send this, because we're kind of working on the fly here this morning. So
What is it?
cool to see
like
that.
a load you found?
no, we're just bringing some beans back to Kansas City. So we're
Ready?
yeah for ready. Yeah, we work pretty well with Ryan and gotten to know Dan over the years. Super good people. So anyhow, some different lanes down there that we've struggled to continue to do because you kind of banked on some of that coming back. And so anyway.
Yeah, so this
Makes a difference.
the property we're on now is part of the original ground that Mom and Dad bought back in the late 70s. That's the house Brad and I grew up in, so it's easy to remember what year Brad was born and that house was built, because they were the same year. So he came around the same time the house did. But Dad, when he started doing his own thing in '01, started dumping some rock out here to make a little room to park. And at that time it was one truck and a couple of trailers, and then I think shortly after that, I think about the time Brad was getting out of high school, or a little before, that's when he built his shop there. And that was kind of the first shop that
Shop right here?
Yeah, first shop that was used for washing and greasing. And it was one truck, and the grain trailer wouldn't even fit in there. The end dump would.
You were washing out front.
So a lot of work done out front on the concrete. But
Your dad was second generation though. Your grandpa was in trucking too, right?
yeah, Grandpa started with a custom wheat cutting business in the 50s, and then that migrated into tandem dump trucks. He had a fleet of 6 or 7 dump trucks back in that era, and that was kind of when our dad got started, was combining. What, Brad, teenager owned his first combine, I think. And then
16 years old when he bought his first combine.
got into the dump truck business, and then that was pretty seasonal, and he was young and anxious and ready to do more. And that was when Michael Bennett Trucking got started, and our dad and Mike pretty much started. He went to work with Mike at the same time. They lived through deregulation and a lot of change in the industry. There was a lot less enforcement of your activity, and it was more of the Wild West, if you will. Dad was a big believer, if you hire good people and put them in good equipment, things are gonna, and you take care of them, things are probably gonna work out.
Do you all, so Mom still lives here, right?
Yeah, Mom still lives there, yep.
Are you guys, how far are you all from here?
My wife and I are just down the road, and Brad's just south of town, so we're both right here close, and so it's been nice, that transition to living by yourself, as you get older is never fun, and we've got, grandkids around that help keep her young and spry and keep her busy. So, my heart was always right here. Whenever my wife and I talked about going home, it didn't matter if we lived in central Kansas or Texas, home was always right here.
Yeah. Your dad, and what year did he get diagnosed with?
Well, official diagnosis came in probably 06 or 07. And
then you came back here in 08, was that right? Or
yeah, Jill and I had gotten moved back to Topeka in 06, and he was still driving daily then, and he drove every day until late 07. And then it was late 07 when we kind of, he's driving, and he's literally got an oxygen bottle between the damn seat, and he's got it strapped to him. And, I was riding with him that one day, and it was I can remember where we were sitting in the quarry south of Clay Center and looking at him. I'm thinking, this isn't long. This is going to work. And so anyway, you fast forward into that next year, and that was when we made the decision to put a driver in his truck, and Brad put one in his, and then he began the maintenance business. And it was kind of by the grace of God that all works out, because to say that we had a perfect plan laid out and we knew exactly where it was headed would be inaccurate. I mean, we had a pretty good idea what we could do, but there was a Cargill in Topeka had a flour mill, and a good friend of mine through the years was having some service challenges with their current dedicated carrier, and I had just made an off-the-cuff comment one night that you just need somebody that can handle it like we do, and you probably wouldn't have any of these headaches.
Wasn't even thinking about selling.
No, it was just, we're drinking a few beers, talking, we're both wanting to talk about something other than work, and of course, you end up in a work conversation. Well, 2 weeks later, he said, well, were you serious about that? And I said, well, serious about what? And he's like, I'm done. I'm ready for a change. And so, that turned into a 3-truck-a-day operation in Topeka, just hauling wheat across town. And, that was a 100-year-old flour mill. Well, a few years later, that flour mill was taken out of the program.
I remember that.
That led to the brand situation, and so we kind of got into the brand haul, and we were doing that 24/7, and that was about the time that wet distillers became available in the marketplace. That's the unique thing about kind of what we do. This is an industry that didn't exist, in the beginning of the 2000s, and so
still not that old.
No, it's really not, and so we were fortunate to kind of be in a place by chance where we were renting Fairview Express's belt trailer to haul some of their products, and we thought, well, we might buy one of our own, and then now we've got, I think I counted 18 of them on the asset listing now, and it's all kind of based on the foundation of a 24/7 service mentality, and that it seems like if you can react to that market, it will reward you. But at the same time, when you don't react to it or can't support it, there's outlets it'll find.
Somebody
will. So.
Oh, nice.
But yeah. So this is kind of the main hub where everything is at. But when we first built the shop, the area where the parts are at back there, that was the first office, if you will. We outgrew that over the years, and I want to say it would have been in, was it 15, I think, Brad? We added the expansion in 15, so that was kind of early on in 08, and then this area here we added on in 15, basically up to including Jill's office, and then we added on the parts lean-to and storage area that we didn't have before.
The original office was built in
08.
Okay.
Yep, 08. We had, at that time, it was just Brad in our repair business then. He was the single employee for Hamish Repair.
But before 08, because obviously your dad was running a trucking business, but there was no repair business then?
No.
Okay.
So we had The small shop over there at Mom and Dad's house was where Dad and Brad worked out of. You know, it was I think a 12-foot door, so anything over that you had to take stacks off to get in, and it was one truck in, one truck out. You know, in '08, we incorporated, you know, Brad's truck, Dad's truck, and trailers, and at that time, you know, was still working for Frito-Lay. I spent about close to 20 years working for them before moving back, and through the years had bought a couple of the trailers that kind of went into the mix, and then we incorporated all that and kind of made Hamas Trucking and Hamas Repair as we know it today in 2008. You know, our dad was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis and wasn't going to be able to continue to drive. Brad needed to be home a little more, really needed to not be in a truck and be gone. And you know, his background and I are very different. You know, he's very strong mechanically, and I'm not.
I was just going to ask who was the mechanic.
There's no hiding that. But what's good is we've got some pretty good complementary skills.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, when a subject comes up, you know, it's pretty easy for me to default to him. Dean is our parts manager.
Hey, Dean.
So
Hello.
Dean,
Good to meet you.
Dean takes
Jared Flynn. Yeah.
You know, every team probably has somebody that's not appreciated enough or does a lot of work that people don't always realize. Well, that's Dean here from a parts standpoint, because it's amazing at times when customers will come in, you know, what seems simple for us. Well, I need this. Well, what's it on? Well, it's on a Peterbilt. Well, what's the model? Well, I'm not sure. Well, then it's, you know, I need a brake chamber. Well, is it a long stroke or a short stroke? Well, hell, I don't know. I mean, so
yeah,
he'll get into what could be up to an hour determining what somebody needs, and it might end up being a $75 part or something, you know. So it's a thankless job many times for sure. And then,
oh yeah, 100%. Are parts easier to get now than?
They've gotten a lot better than they were.
What would you say on average, just like versus pre-COVID now, like parts, are they double the price? Just, I mean, if you just
30 to 40%, I'd say they've went up.
Wow. Rates sure aren't 30 to 40%.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing that we have, you know, we work pretty hard on, is trying to maintain, you know, from a rate standpoint, what it takes to cover that cost of doing business. And fuel, as it should be, is always kind of the leading indicator in the discussion, but there's so many of these other things that are a part of it now, you know. And since we've started, you know, we've layered in a 401k match, we've layered in paid vacation, we've layered in a pretty good health insurance supplement.
Yeah.
And so when you put all that into the equation, it continues to drive that cost per mile. And so when fuel's going up, you know, rates go up, and there's a fair amount of understanding why. But then when it takes a dip, you know, and people look for, well, let's dial that back now. And, you know, what you have to share with them is that's not the only thing going into this. You know, the COVID cost impact of parts, these ongoing benefits. You know, what I try to explain to a customer is we're providing for our employees the same thing that you and I would want. You know, we both enjoy a paid vacation, health care, you know, 401ks for retirement, but that all has to go into the equation. But without good people, there's nothing here. I mean, Brad and I can't even come close to doing what this business requires, but we've got an incredible foundation of good people, and that's, if you know, and try to treat them just like we would our own family, and make sure that, you know, when it's all said and done, everybody feels kind of like they're a part of all of that. I'm going to introduce you to Garrett. Garrett is started in our wash bay for us. Were you in junior high, I think, Garrett, or were you a freshman? I can't remember if you're high school or junior high. Right in between, but he's kind of an example of our program, you know, getting kids started in our wash bay young, and then those that kind of have an interest in trucks and mechanic, and will, you know, start to invest a little more time in developing some of that. But Garrett leads our weekend crew, really, from a maintenance standpoint. So we'll do a group text every Friday morning on, you know, what's needed on the equipment for the weekend that we send to the drivers, and then we'll kind of put that list together. And then probably 3 out of 4 Saturdays, Garrett's here. At least a lot of months it's every Saturday, but it's also Friday night a lot of times till 7:30, 8 o'clock or later at times. A little piece of history, my grandma always had this, our grandpa's rock hauling business. They had made a calendar back in '78, and this is out at the old lake south of Seneca. And I had told her at one point I would love to to have that. So
Yeah,
I framed it and had it in my offices over the years. What's really interesting is if you go back, I think it was last year, dates on the calendar by month were the same last year as they were in 1978. One of our mechanics was standing here, and
So 24 and 78 were almost identical.
they were. If you go by, I think it was when last year.
I'm not sure.
Dalton figured this out, didn't he, Garrett? Was it Dalton figured that out? I can't remember. The day of the month is the same, and the reason we figured that out is he thought this was a calendar for last year, and I said, "No, dummy, that's from 1978." And he's like, "Well, it's the same day," and so he did a little Google research, and I think every so many years.
It makes
follows.
sense, yeah.
But then there's a change, and it isn't quite the same. Then it goes back. I don't know. Useless trivia we learned about all that. But
As far as the repair business goes, I mean, was it Dan's idea or whose initial idea was like, hey, we ought to have a repair shop for outside trucks? And
I went through a divorce and kind of wanted to be home more for my daughter I had at the time. Just need to be around more, so we started a repair shop.
to take you off the road and
Yeah,
have
I put a driver in my truck, started a repair shop, and got home every night that way. And
Yeah.
it worked out good for both of us, and
Yeah.
it took off from there.
it was definitely a big leap of faith when we kind of decided to go that route.
look at this.
Hey guys, we're super excited. We just launched the BulkLoads fuel card. After years of preparation and planning, we now have a card for our BulkLoads members. If you're interested, go to the link below or go on BulkLoads and click on the fuel card tab. This card we have put together, you can save at all the major truck stops. We're super excited to get it out there. So check out the BulkLoads fuel card.
This is a 2019 glider kit, and we just put it together. Just got out of the body shop to get the stripes painted on it. Well, I think it's got 6,500 miles on it. So,
Talk about what you're doing here.
basically we're just starting from scratch, just adding all the lights, any bit of chrome and interior work and about anything and everything you can do to a truck. We're just trying to get it the way the bosses like it. So
Have you been involved in this one since the beginning?
yep.
So you really got to see this thing from
Basically from ground zero.
Yeah,
Yep.
a box to put
Yep.
together.
Yep. We do pretty much about anything in this shop. I mean, other than the body work, we do anything from lights and chrome and wiring and about anything you can imagine to a truck. We can do it. So
What do you consider your title? What are these guys? Their title? Are they?
We're not real big on titles. Or
Well, I know, but you got to call project.
Yeah,
Truck.
definitely.
They're like a project manager of the truck and mechanic.
He's definitely the project manager, if you will. He's done all the work for our Louisville shows and Joplin and whatnot, getting things accessorized. And the other guys, there's plenty of guys that help behind the scenes, but Nick takes the time and energy to do it kind of in a way that's top notch. So
it's just something I've learned a lot from being in the shop because I started whenever I was a freshman in high school. And so basically everything I've learned has been in this shop. And so
yeah, Nick was another one that was started in our wash bay and kind of worked into the shop. And his senior project in high school was building Brad's race car, which is down in the other shop, but it's a 68 Camaro.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And what's it run in the
It runs like 550s in the 8th mile.
Okay,
But that was his senior project in high school, so
that's pretty cool, actually.
kind of graduated into the trucks after that.
yeah, we changed the grill out to a 379 style grill, and Brad wanted to go with the old style paint scheme on it.
Yeah, which is so cool.
Changed the air cleaners to the old style, and it originally came with just 5 cab lights, and we had the body shop add a few extras.
So how many more hours do you have left on this thing? I mean, obviously you got to have this ready in a couple
we've got
weeks.
2 weeks left, so
Whatever it takes.
depends on if it could be 80 hours or 100 hours. It's hard to tell. So basically, you brand new truck and you're afraid to drill into something, but we'll do it. I mean, basically adding lights to the back of the bunk and just drilling holes. And
When you get like those ideas, I mean, are you all looking on the website and of other trucks that have done that? That's why I'm like, you go to these shows and you see like, man, that was cool. Look at these lights on the back here. Look what they did here. But like, where do those ideas come from? Like,
it's a little
Try
bit
to
of,
look at their ideas and then try to make some of your own.
Yeah, because you don't want to just copy somebody, but kind of make it your own.
Sometimes their ideas are pretty cool. So
Yeah. There's a lot of ideas that you get from other people. I mean, especially that's what the great benefit for them help, let me go to shows and stuff like that. I can just see so many different ideas and get
Take a
better,
picture and then come back and be
get
like,
better
hey,
at what
I
I'm
like
doing.
this.
But there's a lot of times I'll sit here after work and I'll just stare at stuff and just sit there and go, well, how can I make this better? And just brainstorm ideas. But
Wow,
I
that's
just
really
always
interesting.
try to make something different. I mean, you always strive to be different around here, so.
Yeah. Man, that's really neat. So this one will go to the show, then what happens to it?
A whole little livestock with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get used a little bit.
You'll be
Yeah.
with some. Yeah.
This is just for people watching that don't have it yet. Explain what a glider kit is.
A glider kit is basically, you can buy them a few different ways, but this one was bought rolling, so it means it came with the rear ends, but it did not have an engine and transmission.
So everything but the engine
Basically
train.
everything but the engine and transmission
Okay, and you're buying that from.
from Peterbilt.
Okay. And the whole purpose of glider kits in the beginning was you got a wrecked truck that you buy a kit just
Yeah,
to.
like
Yeah.
we have an old 359 outside that was originally a glider kit. It's an 86, but back in that day it was because they'd wreck a truck and they just didn't want to haul the truck, and they just built another one back new. And then I think they got a lot more popular when the emission laws come
Right.
out, and
Because today, can you still get a glider kit?
no, like
Not in
2020,
PACCAR.
like 2020
Is when they
last
stopped.
year you could get a glider kit.
Whether or not Western Star or Freightliner still did them, not real sure, but types of trucks we were interested in, they discontinued after that year.
I can always remember, and I don't know if they're even still around, Fitzgerald, but like
Yeah.
they created a company where they were just building glider trucks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, they'd buy hundreds of thousands of kits
Yeah.
and build these
They
things.
put a lot of them together.
Yeah. Are you custom building any trucks for outside?
We put a few together, but mainly just our own.
Okay. Your all's
we-
fleet is primarily belt trailers, right?
Belt trailers.
Yeah.
Why belt trailers?
We had an end dump first, and then it seemed like there was more of a demand for a belt trailer. So it was late 2010. I think we bought our first belt trailer.
What's the advantage over this belt trailer versus an end dump?
You can do pretty much all the same work, but you can. There's so many small commodity sheds to dump into, so you need a belt trailer to dump in a commodity shed. Most of them because the roofs aren't tall enough.
Because end dump can't
Yeah.
get high enough. Okay.
Or if the ground's not level, or
not
just a
level.
lot safer to get them in and out.
Belt trailer, you're $20,000 more than a
Oh,
end dump. I'm just saying, like if you
probably
don't.
40.
I mean,
45.
We've got one new one on the way, and it's a triple, and I think it's a 135 with FET. So
I was just thinking, I mean, you got to figure
you've
out
got
the.
twice in those what you've got in the new hopper.
And there's the trouble with a belt trailer. You probably got. I bet you got better than twice the maintenance a year.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I mean,
Yeah.
twice.
Because we have kind of on a maintenance rotation every 3 months. We try to go through all the belts, fix any of these cross members that could break.
On any given day, we'll load or leave Seneca. We might load in Iowa and unload in Nebraska, and then load and come back to Kansas and possibly end up in Missouri. And every one of those 4 states has a different formula. And so when you think about outfitting your fleet and where you send trucks through the day, soy hull pellets in Council Bluffs on a spread, they'll only load you to 80,000. But if you send a triple up, they'll let you go to 90. When you leave there, you can't get on the interstate because you can only go to 80 on the interstate. So you have to come back on the 2-lane roads, and you get to Kansas and we're legal. But the only way to get around Topeka, Kansas on the federal highway system, on the state highway, is 75 comes into town. You can either go through the artery at Topeka and 25 stoplights, or you jump on 470 and go around the loop and then get back off on the south edge of town. But the trouble is that over the years there's been some local enforcement that monitors weight on that loop because they know what people are doing. And we can tell you a 90,000 pound load on that interstate system around Topeka is a $1,000 fine. Well, this facility gets heavily used every week. We've got a crew of about, I don't know, half dozen 6 to 7 high school kids that are kind of on the roster every weekend that come in and help power wash and hand wash. So it doesn't happen every weekend, but our goal is to have every truck and trailer through here on a weekend, and they'll get power washed, hand rubbed with mitts. We got a final rinse for spot free, and try to get them looking kind of like new again for Monday morning. And that's one of the things that we feel like, number one, you know, it helps maintain the equipment, but it's also a real big selling point from a driver standpoint. You know, there's such a difference in what's expected of a driver at home today versus when our dad was a driver. You know, it used to be when you got in on Fridays, you greased your truck, you changed your own oil, you washed it, and that was kind of all the expectation. And over the years, you know, Brad and I think learned through the challenges that presents at home when your dad's gone a lot and then he gets home and he has to work on the truck. And,
Yeah.
you know, we're trying to be that employer that, you know, trucking's a lifestyle, it's not a job. And if you look at it as a job, you're usually pretty sorely disappointed. And so we try to take that out of the equation for the driver.
Well, yeah, and I think even the sense of not just having to do this, but the pride, like when you're keeping these trucks spotless. I mean, they're show quality trucks anyways. Probably the driver even maybe drives that thing better and treats it better. I mean, in a way, I would think.
Yeah.
You hope so, anyway.
Yeah, you would hope so. But I think
most
like,
generally
if the owners are taking so much pride in it, hopefully the drivers are too.
Yeah, that generally that pulls itself through. But anyway, we also use this for trailer washouts as well. So I think Drake is over here now. He's kind of our primary guy Monday through Friday.
Will you guys do outside washouts?
No, it's just all for our own use.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I was gonna try to add you to our washout list.
yeah. No, we try to avoid that we just got so much stuff of our own to keep track of. But Drake does a lot of this work every week. And
hey, Drake, how's it going?
Not bad.
Yep, going to be getting this one cleaned up for the weekend. A before and after shot of this would have been good because this truck was multicolored when it came in. But
Really good now.
anyway, try to spend a little time keeping them clean and stuff. So
How long will you spend on this truck and trailer? How long will it take to clean up?
Oh, usually like an hour or so. Because on this certain trailer, we got to hand wash the back door to keep that stainless steel nice and polished.
Oh,
Give it
nice.
shine.
yeah,
Very cool.
Instead of having a painted back end where you're trying to scratch the paint and clean it off and blow it off with a fire hose.
Yep. Basically, when you get to a farmyard, first thing you do is open up this lever opens up the knife gate in the middle of the trailer. And then these trailers have automatic locks on the back, and then we also put the manual locks on. If you're hauling something really wet or sometimes dried EDG, you got to put both locks on to keep it sealed up good enough. And then we'll open up the back door. This trailer's still dirty inside. This is basically how it came in from the week. And then whenever you're ready, you just slowly creep the belt on. One thing we did, they went to the steeper slopes several years ago. It takes out a little bit of the cubic yardage inside the trailer, but they're so much easier to clean out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll load some of that gypsum product and 5-degree weather, drive 6-7 hours and unload it. Yeah.
On these it seems that's a good slope, but like, will a guy ever have to get up here and kind of beat the stuff down and?
Sometimes you do. Right there where your transition is.
I know it depends on the commodity and product, but unload time,
case, unload a trailer.
Oh, you'll probably spend, when you get to a feed yard or a dairy, you probably figure time you're pulling in and leaving, it's 30 minutes, probably.
Oh, that's
a good.
probably a good clean by the time you get
Yeah.
there, clean out good. Some guys are quicker, but
If you're going right back for the same commodity and you don't need to spend much time in the trailer, you know, and it's not muddy or dark, you know, you can do it quicker than that. But you're going to figure about a half hour on an average stop on some of those. So
Majority of these are backing into a barn or backing into something covered.
Most of ours are.
yeah, anywhere from dumping on dirt to concrete blocks to a really nice, well-lit commodity shed to maybe in between some bales of corn stalks. You know, you just never know what you're going to get into with some of the places. So,
And where we go with them is where your feed wagons are going. You know, it's not out there on the concrete. Sometimes you're going back behind the shed where he has his silage.
Yeah.
The ruts and
Is there anything you don't haul in this? I'm just thinking like salt or certain types of aggregates or anything.
the biggest limiter is probably the particle size, you know, in terms of, you know, you don't want anything much over a certain size of rock in it. But if it's a particle size that's smaller, unless it's hazardous, I mean, we don't want to haul anything hazardous, obviously, because we're hauling feed ingredients, but, you know, rocks, grains, things of that nature. Some non-hazmat fertilizer. We've hauled some of that. We don't do much of any of that anymore. But
One thing I can remember, sometimes when, you know, somebody have a belt trailer, we try to load them, and sometimes the destination would argue because of they wanted like a grain gate or a little hopper back in the back.
Yeah,
we keep
so
them on the side.
Oh, this one has it?
yeah, so we've got,
You hang them right here on these hooks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then it hangs on the side of the trailer over here.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
You guys can accommodate it.
Yep.
So that driver can just pick it up and put it
We
back?
probably, at one time, we had 3 or 4 customers that we would dump into an auger, like DDG into an auger,
Yeah.
so we put it
Yeah.
in the red bin.
Okay.
so yeah,
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, you can go into a pretty small auger at a farm destination. We'll go to places where they're putting DDG in an old converted hog shed that now they keep it in under the weather and feed cattle out of, versus where they used to keep sows, or, you know, just there's all kinds of farmer ingenuity that we'll run into that, you know, with these things, it makes it pretty versatile to service them. I don't know how we would run our business without this facility for what we do. I mean, we put equipment in places that you really probably shouldn't, for as nice as it is, but it helps us keep the drivers on the staff to do the kind of work that needs done in that feed industry, which is a really high service type of industry. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's the best equation, but we've made it work. So we're going to kind of stick with it, I guess. I'm sure people that'll watch this will be like, well, I wouldn't have done that, or I would do this. And you know what? They're probably right in some ways, but we're kind of learning as we go.
There's more people that'll gain value from it, though.
Yeah, this is an 04.
04 Peterbilt, our dad bought this truck new. It's got right at 1.5 million miles on it.
Oh, wow.
Brad normally drives. If anybody does, I may drive it once in a while.
Put me in this, I feel at home. Put me in a new one, I don't.
So your dad drove this a little bit? Did he drive it a little bit?
Yeah, he drove it several years. This is the last truck he was driving.
Got a few dingers in it, but after 1.5 million miles and a lot of rock roads.
I bet this thing gets some looks going down the highway.
Yeah,
it's pretty noisy too. It runs pretty good.
What motor's in there?
It's got a 6NZ cat. What it has in it now. First engine made it 1,200,000.
fortunately, we had one go through a ditch here earlier this year, and just one of those situations. So we're going to replace the front axle on it. Do a lot of the work right here in house. But this truck was actually bought new by one of our owner operators, and he had sold it, and we bought it back, and we've gone through it and repainted it, rewired the dash. It's I think it's a
2.5 million miles on it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
98.
You know what's amazing is the doors open and shut, and it's quieter in here and less rattles than a new truck. You know, we keep a lot of our spare engines for rebuilds and things like that in here and whatnot. So
some of these engines here, will they eventually go back in a truck, or the parts will, or a combination of both? Or
Yeah,
couple of them. You know, this one will be, it'll get rebuilt, put back in something. That one is just core, basically. We probably won't ever do anything with it, but yep. And then we got a couple back there that'll eventually get put in something.
Obviously, the yellow cat motor. What is that one there? Is
That's
that
Detroit.
That's a Detroit.
Series.
Oh yeah, I see it
Yep.
at the top there.
Yep.
What's the red one over here?
It's a Cummins.
Okay.
It's an ISX. We actually pulled the ISX out and put a cat where that one was.
What's the best and worst engine in your opinion?
Oh, I'm kind of a yellow motor guy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a cat guy. There's nothing wrong with the ISXs, but I'm more of a cat guy. We just bought this truck here late last year. It was a gentleman that had been helping us that got out of trucking, and it was a 2014 glider, and so we brought it in and had a lot of the paint work done to it. But with what we do with feed, the frame on the trucks can get pretty tarnished and rusted, and they take a lot of abuse. So we've got to get some of that stuff touched up once in a while. So fortunate, one of our mechanics, Dalton, does a lot of has a body background, paint background, and so we'll turn our wash bay into a quasi paint booth at times, and so he can tell you a little bit about what we've all done to this one and what we're doing to it currently, I guess.
So right now we're basically just finishing it up. We got the front fenders sent to Mark, who just painted number 2. So he's supposed to get those fenders done here. Should have them hopefully this afternoon and get it back on the road. But when we first got it, there was it had the full deck plate all the way from the front to back. But with the daily working truck, we tend to work on them a lot. So we I cut the deck plate and just shortened it up some, and then kind of reused a lot of stuff that we had on truck number 2. So, and then the frame was in pretty rough shape. It was pretty rust jacked. So we sanded, or basically ground down everything, wire wheeled everything, and then I used fiberglass body filler on it, and then we used primed it, or the primer we have or used is a corrosion resistant epoxy primer.
So you shouldn't see that rust
hopefully
out. Yeah.
Hopefully it lasts a lot longer anyways that way. And then painted it with the single stage polyurethane paint, and turned out pretty good anyways, and put double hump fenders on it and polished the wheels, put a split tank on it. It used to have a hydraulic tank that hung off the frame here, and I closed up some of the holes. And
when did y'all get this in, or more importantly, how long have you been working on this? And then how much time is left before this thing's ready to go?
Time wise, I probably spent I'd probably say 2 or 3 days on the frame, doing that on and off. Never really worked on it solid, but a few days on that, and then had to do some interior stuff, different lights in it, some shortening the seat base right now, and I probably had a good week in it, week and a half probably, all put together anyways.
Once this truck's ready, where's it going next? What's it gonna be doing?
That's the driver group would like to know that. We haven't announced that yet. So, yeah.
Hey, well, this is gonna be like 2 months after, so then this will release.
We'll have a ripple effect. So we've got a driver that we just hired that will put in one of our older trucks, and then that gentleman will most likely start driving this one.
I never thought about that, but as you guys get this, I'm sure there is a lot of chatter from drivers on what's gonna happen. Like,
this truck has been a hot topic of discussion.
I was hoping the bosses were just gonna drive it for themselves. Keep it a little cleaner that way. But the engine they had painted it white previously, and it didn't look the best, so we wire wheeled it down and cleaned it up and repainted the engine, and then put a different bumper on it. The grill had a big the chain went through it, looked like, I'm guessing. So we took this one off of that truck because we went with the 379 style on that truck. So we took the 389 one and put it on here, and now just getting the little stuff touched up. And the original cat motors
were white.
Oh, okay. So this is kind of like a throwback to.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's cool.
I never knew that. The old cat ones were white, huh?
This was the parts room we added on. We added on to the office as well. Ain't nothing too elaborate back here, but this
one of the first parts
we added
rooms.
this in 15, so we didn't have this initially, and so now that you see it the way it is now, you kind of, I don't know how the hell we got by to start with,
Yeah.
but
When it was just me, it was not disorganized.
There's been a lot of evolutions of this business just in 30 years.
Yeah.
Like it's like changed and evolved a lot.
yeah, you just got to come back to, if you treat them like your family, if you think about, if you were the driver in that seat and I needed this or I needed that, did I get that to them? And, you try to do your best to negotiate favorable rates that drive pay that works for them. When it's all said and done, if you do those things, I think it's going to take care of you. There's just so much that you can't control that if you let the things you can't control take over your mind, you don't get anything done.
Yeah.
And you just lose a lot of.
And I don't think we've never asked any of our drivers not to do anything that we wouldn't do or haven't already done ourselves.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that because we ask them to do some things. I mean, there's places we go that you'll stop on the road and put your muck boots on before you drive in, because if you got out with these shoes on, you're going to be up to your ankles in slop. And so, but we've both done that ourselves, and you can't tell a several $1 million a year customer that, well, I can't go to that yard because it's too muddy.
Get my feet dirty.
Yeah, you're not going to have the rest of that business if you don't do all of it. So
Talk about the end with your dad, because I had the pleasure of getting to work with him early on, from 06 to 2011. Man, I always remember I had just good conversations with him, and I always tried to do that, just have good conversations with all those guys. But it was, really, I mean, when he was diagnosed, there was a pretty good still span until his passing. But talk about just that kind of towards the end, how that, what happened and how that.
Well, he was so in 08, we had 2 trucks and 4 trailers when he started dispatching, and when we talked to him about making that transition from driving and doing that alone, there wasn't a real clear path on how much work was there and what are these guys going to do, and he and my mom both resisted. Surprisingly, my mom resisted pretty heavily as well. I mean, you'd have thought I just landed off of Mars when I suggested he'd not drive, and got him into the dispatch role though, and did a wonderful job at it. And he did that full time from 08 until he passed in July of 18. With the house where it was, he did a lot of his work at the table over there. And that pulmonary fibrosis, it's a nasty disease. A lot of coughing, a lot of challenges just to get through a day. And so he pretty much stayed at the house doing the work, but he could look out those patio windows and he could see the parking lot and the shop. And I always tell drivers today that you were being interviewed when you came in and off that yard in the truck. Dad was keeping a pretty close eye how fast you drove and how you dropped your trailers and what were you doing when you walked around to look at it, because with his health, he'd be up at all hours of the night at times. So he but he persevered through it all, and drivers had nothing but respect for him. There wasn't anything he hadn't done, and a lot of the old stories were some good ones that he would always like to tell, especially the guys that have been with us for a while. And so literally the day he came home after being in the hospital for, gosh, it had been almost 5 months, drove home from Kansas City, or rode home, which was a big feat, but went to the church for my oldest daughter's junior high graduation, and he wasn't going to miss that. And it was more of a feat than anybody would have probably ever imagined. So his casket was pimped out a little bit. Whether he would have liked this or not, we did it anyway. But I've got some pictures on my phone. But we had a Peterbilt emblem on the coffin, and then we had one of his first trucks on the side of the hood. And he had a cat engine, what said "Cat House."
Well, I saw that out there, yeah.
So then on one of the other emblems, we had a cat house emblem, which for non-truck people at the services created a few questions what that might have meant. It made sense to us, but we had the fleet of trucks we had at the time, we had in the background and part of the procession for the funeral and that kind of thing. So, and anyway, that last Memorial weekend he was home. That weekend we went ahead and lined up all the trucks out just outside the patio window so he could kind of see them. He wasn't getting out a whole heck of a lot, and it's kind of a spur of the moment. It's like, well, let's just stage them out here, and then we got some good drone footage of him too later on, just kind of last little bit of him to see what he had out there. And so, you know, I often wonder what he would say or think when he's here, you know, now with because we've grown, it's over 70% since his passing. I know some of the guys that have been with us through all of this, I think, you know, there's some of the things we probably do today that Dad may not 100% agree with, that's probably helped us grow, but it's also helped cater to the next generation of driver that, you know, the older school guys are like, why in the hell is it like this? Or we sure didn't do it that way. Our dad's handle was fifth wheel. So a lot of times the guy, well, fifth wheel sure wouldn't be allowing that to happen. If you did that with him, you'd be getting your rear chewed. And yeah, you're probably right.
I can just see the old school guys telling you that.
Yeah.
Man, fifth wheel wouldn't agree with this one.
Yeah. It's quite the journey. It's a roller coaster. We're strapped in. Whether you want it or not, we're on the ride. So
yeah.